With winter approaching, I thought it would be interesting to spend a couple of minutes today looking at where we think the COVID-19 trends will be headed in the coming months. First of all, I wanted to present to you a comparison between the daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million between the US and Canada. And you can see, going back all the way to the beginning of the pandemic, Canada has done a better job overall in terms of how many cases they have had per million people. With very few exceptions, at any given time we look in the past to the present, Canada has had significantly less numbers of COVID-19 cases. The United States, we have been coming down now for the last few weeks. But what worries me on this graph here is this little notch that you see. We kind of hit a plateau for the last few days, and there are signs that we may be moving back up again. We'll have to see, I hope not, but if that happens, that's probably a reflection of the fact that still more than a third of the population in the United States has not been fully vaccinated. I see almost every day among my patients new cases being diagnosed among the unvaccinated. There are some breakthrough cases among the vaccinated who haven't gotten the booster. Of course, you have the younger population that a good proportion of that is still vulnerable. So we could very well witness an increase again of these numbers as we move into the cold season. In fact, some people are making the case that we will possibly see here in the United States what the UK has seen, and that is after they have come down on that initial Delta spike, they have hit a plateau and then they have been going up in the number of cases since then. It's possible, we'll have to see. Now, in terms of the number of deaths per million inhabitants, the same picture that I presented earlier, Canada has had significantly less number of people dying from COVID-19 and complications from that compared to the United States. If we look at the United Kingdom, it's somewhere in between. The number of deaths are trending upwards lately, but the United States so far is trending down. However, as I said earlier, with the cases making that notch up, we may see the deaths going up again, unfortunately. How about Europe? Well, it's trending up mostly in terms of new cases. You see here Germany, Russia in particular. Russia takes part of Asia too, but part of it is in Europe. Romania, where I talked about in a previous video, they have seen a huge amount of Delta wave. Their vaccination rates are still below a third of the population. New cases, fortunately, are coming down. Deaths are still way up at an all-time high. But here's the sobering graph for Europe. Whereas new cases are fairly close between different countries per million, here are the number of deaths from COVID-19 per million people. And you see most of Western Europe, UK, Germany, Italy, France, they are fairly low, even though there is an upward trend. You are talking about less than 4 or 3 cases per million of people dying from COVID-19. But look what's happening with Russia. Is getting close to 7 per million dying from COVID-19 and trending up. But look at the green line of Romania. I mean, this has been a national tragedy over there. We are there over 25 cases per million of people dying from COVID-19. Like I said, the cases are coming down. But this, my friends, is what I think the difference between a country that has a good vaccination rate versus a country that doesn't have that can make. If you have a wave of COVID-19 coming in, yes, you're going to have new cases all over the place, even among the vaccinated. But if you have a place like Romania, where at the time when this started, 3 out of 4 were not vaccinated, this is what you're going to see, and this is the tragedy that has been unfolding there for the last several weeks. Finally, I wanted to draw your attention to another place in the world, in Asia, in Japan. You see here, they have also experienced a huge uptick in the new cases of COVID-19 with a Delta wave. However, that has come down to an all-time low almost recently. If you look at the number of deaths per million, which is the lower part of this line graph, you see that whereas in terms of cases, the uptick was dramatically more than in previous waves, the number of deaths, fortunately, in Japan has been noticeably lower than in prior waves. And this is in good part due to Japan's good vaccination rates. Currently in Japan, a little bit over 73% of the overall population is fully vaccinated. Last but not least, I think we could look at a country that has a really good vaccination rate, United Arab Emirates. They have over 88% of the population fully vaccinated. Over time, on the upper graph, you see the new cases line per million. It's been going down literally from the beginning of the year with a little blip during the Delta. The lower graph is the number of deaths, and you see there they have had a really good success with not having the death rate going up like you see in Romania. A good vaccination rate in a country can do a lot of good, and if you have a really high vaccination rate like the United Arab Emirates, not only you have a lower rate of deaths, but you even have a lower rate of new cases. That Delta spike never happened there to the degree that it happened in other places. And the same is true, for example, for Portugal, which similarly has a very high vaccination rate, where you have previous waves that were quite significant. You had a little bit of a Delta blip, but in terms of number of deaths, you see that it barely moved the needle up, and it stayed that way to this point. What the future brings, God only knows. We'll remain hopeful, and till next time, you stay healthy and you stay wise, my friend.